288 at 7.4. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just fixing that.
So the question is, if there's on the second floor, there's some unfinished space. Let's see if I can find it.
Just in the interim, let me see if these numbers are correct. If we're looking at the CGL report, page 3-22, we have 3 levels that he had: a standard projection, an adjusted projection, and an average projection. And then in 2022, that is about 15 years out, plus or minus a little bit. So are you trying to reach the 15 level out, or your goals doing the 20 year? I'm not giving you my preference, I'm just asking. Is there, well, let me just, the number, the standard projection, that was with no deduction for the programs that y'all are instituting with the court system, correct? And that gets you to the 1582 in 2020. I'm sorry, 2022. The average projection is 1362, and then the adjusted projection was 1143. And that was due to their projections on all the alternatives to incarceration being enacted. And I think the number that y'all went with was the standard projection. Is that correct? Because
I believe that's right.
Just to do a quick add up, at the standard, which had no influence of the funding that you're doing for the court system, at 2022 puts you at 1582. Adding up the 272 for the current, the 1104 that you're projecting, gives you 1376, which is under that number. But then you are discussing 96 and 240 additional. It puts you up to 1,712, which puts you right out there, 2027 number, with no adjustments for the programs that you're instituting. I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same numbers.
And I don't have a problem doing that either. I have faith in the programs that we're instituting, like the AIC program and the expeditionary court, so on. But I also am a realist, and I see what the population's doing in this area. The state of Texas is growing by 1,000 people a day. That's a fact. 1,000 people a day. And our area is experiencing a great deal of that, and a lot of those folks are bad guys. And I just, I will get on it again, and I keep saying it. I was here in 1984 when they built that thing down the street, and we're 20 years later here, and it's been adequate for about 19 years and 6 months. And I'm just saying that we need to think ahead here. And if we can build this out at today's prices, that's where I'm going here, trying to save money in the long run here over the next 20 years.
Commissioner Fleming, also, Mr. Pardee answered the question about the construction contingency. He said that you could consider half of the design contingency that's included in that presentation as going towards construction.
Okay, so the design contingency line item, it's half and half. So we've got contingency for design and construction.
That's how I explained it.
Okay.
Are we going to talk about blowing up the hotel and all that too? Or?
What about the implosion and the hazardous abatement costs?
The estimate on that is $2 million. The estimate on the adjacent property that's absolutely necessary, that's in the plan currently, was $700,000, although that's on the high end.
Okay, Judge, did you ask him if there was anything else that wasn't included? Because I'm a little perturbed with them for not adding that.
For not adding the,
Yeah, for that not being included in their list.
oh, he certainly considered it, we talked about that. But that's a known cost, we can certainly add that.
We're talking about demolition,
Demolition.
abatement, demolition, clean out, clearing off the site, et cetera, getting the old buildings.
That's
going.
right, that's right. The thing we had talked about was, as those of you who went through the process last time had discussed, paying for some of those contingencies through the interest earned on the bond money. And I think we mentioned that briefly yesterday. So, thoughts?
Well, Judge, in order to do that, we'll have to get an idea as to, the FF&E doesn't include any computer equipment and that sort of thing. So in order to know if you're going to have enough interest to cover FF&E and some of these other items, we're really going to have to get bond information and get all that. I mean, Ms. Wilson may be able to tell us how much she thinks that would yield for us, but we need to be careful that we've got all the costs covered.
Once you nail down how much you think you want to ask for the issuance, then we need to determine what the impact is going to be as far as the tax rate. I think that's something that's going to need to be known. And then we can calculate what we estimate the interest would be. And because of the timing, you realize that in the initial fiscal year, that interest is going to have to pay that note because we're not budgeted to pay that note in 08. We have no note right now. So we will have to use the interest that it accrues to pay the interest that is going to be due.
I have a question too on this when we're talking about cost, and that's we're having to move the sheriff's department and the probation zone. And if we do anything on that, that's got to be included in the bond issue. And has anything been done on that, or what sort of costs are going to be involved?
Well, Mr. Overitz, I think I mentioned that in the presentation. There are some things that I cannot elaborate on because we've discussed them in executive session, but we're looking at all the options right now. Hopefully we'll have some answers within the next week or so that we can share with the rest of the task force. But, I mean, we are looking at all those options. Whether that has to be included in this bond election, that's up to the court and with whatever suggestions that we get from the task force members.
Well, I think if you're looking at purchasing anything, I think that would have to be part of the bond issue, in my opinion. I think if you tried to do it, it would hurt the bond issue.
Well, the problem is, we're talking about all these things now. I asked a lot of these questions when we had the presentation from HDR, and no one mentioned these things. We've got a deadline. We have to make a decision today. We've got to get our information to the bond council. And so, I mean, and I understand and appreciate that, but we're down to the wire, and we need to make a decision today. Oh, I'm sorry, Lee, go ahead.
Did you want input from the committee in terms of?
Yes, sir.
In deference to my good friend, Mr. McGinnis, this jail has been infinitely better studied and figured than the 1984 jail. That was done very quickly, down and dirty, and several things happened in that. One is prior to that time, you had never incarcerated for misdemeanors, and that's one of the reasons why this jail became filled up so quickly is there was a radical change in misdemeanor punishments starting in 1985. I would support shelling out a 5th floor.